sunglasses anymore.
Well, not on the inside.
Officially on the air now, aren't you?
Wow.
Yeah, we're live.
All right.
So we are gonna call this, June 5th meeting of the funding committee to order. We have present council member Jack Mosley, Nisha Ramsey, citizen Scott Staples, Mayor, yay.
There he is.
Mayor Treat, Butch Higginbotham, Lisa Meyer, Jim Irwin, John Martin, Jordan Reynolds,
Name?
Philip Partain, we've got Ted Taylor present, we've got Mariah Winkle present, we've got Cheryl Moore, and we've got
Peter Cunningham.
Peter Cunningham.
So,
Thank you.
Miss-
And
Rebecca Kidner.
Rebecca Kidner.
You won't get a grant.
Yeah.
Someone won't get a grant, you don't know.
So y'all have the minutes from last month's meeting in your packet? Any questions, changes? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? Now we're on to, we have public comments, if we have public here. Anybody want to make a comment? You're always welcome to comment.
Thank you for your service.
Oh.
Oh, she doesn't-
More of those,
Oh.
more of those.
No old business, we'll move right into new business.
Okay. All right, so, I'm gonna say two things and then turn it over to Ted. The way we're thinking about this and the way we're gonna kind of present it tonight is, City of Bryant, we had $6 and $3 stormwater utility fees. That was phase one, okay? Had that for many years. We had a great presentation last month by Will Dan that is another phase down the road. So what we've done is we've taken their data, and how they put together their numbers, and we've put together what we think is phase two, right? It's not as aggressive as kind of what they presented. To us, it makes sense to take a little step instead of trying to do the whole thing, okay? So what Ted's gonna present, and it's in what you've got in your packet, is the Will Dan model you got presented last month, and then what we kind of see as phase two is like the next 4 years. If we did this is the revenue it bring in, this is the projects, and we can talk about the projects we could do, as a phase two that's not overwhelming to our residents, in our opinion, our residents or our businesses, but makes sense to the next step. Tim's on vacation in Belize. We worked with him before he left on vacation, but Ted's been doing the detailed work and diving into the numbers. And so I've asked him to kind of talk about how this fits. And he's also dug into every business and what they'd be charged on this phase two model, okay? So we can find out what First Southern would pay in this model. We've also been meeting with the school districts to kind of let them know this is what it looks like for you in this model. So anyway, I'll just turn it over to Ted. But that's the way, I hope you understand, phase one, we're talking about phase two.
So I'm assuming everybody looked at their in-depth detail at their spreadsheet.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what's the immediate question? Do y'all have questions?
There were some negative numbers in here.
Yeah, there is. Okay, so if we want to address those first, we can right now.
Whichever way.
So basically, I think the negative numbers that you're speaking about, John, is down here where they go negative and positives. And this is a reflection of basically the operating expense that we're looking at. And these operating expenses were ones that Tim had put together of setting the stormwater department off by itself. And if you look back in the Will Down report, they kind of just spread it across, they said 5% per year, but that's exactly how it panned out. Of course, there's going to be a lot more initial capital costs. And then, you're going to hire people at certain time. You're going to have to update equipment. And so these aren't 5% numbers. And that's why this would trick back and forth from positive to negative to positive to negative. But in the end, a lot of these offsets will be as a result of being able to handle it with grant money or, you know, some other financing mechanism that will handle those negative costs. And really, talking to the mayor, we said, hey, look, I mean, the Wildan report went all the way out to 2034. Actually, I think there was a 2035 in there. We know somewhere in that process that we're going to probably do another rate study. So that's why if you look at the new spreadsheet, we're subject to future rate changes or things like that. So let's kind of just focus on the next 4 years to get us to the phase 2 portion of it. So when we did this, we saw, hey, the negative numbers look bad, but in essence, something will offset that. As long as we're going up and down and we're hanging along where that neutral balance is, we're okay. So within this package, you saw the current Wildan model, which has essentially 2 bonds, 10 million and 11 million, spaced 3 years apart. That's going to kind of take care of what we think we're going to realistically do during that capital improvement project. If you remember, it was $95 million. Well, that's not $21 million. So, you know, and also too, is we can spread those capital improvements over 20 years or 10 years. Of course, we want to fix them all right now, but, you know, as part of this body, we'll probably identify some of those projects we want to do immediately. Like some of them, you know, they're easy, financially accessible and being able to do, but that $21 million would have got us a long way. But I think when everybody looked at it, it's like some of these big locations, we're going to have to pay like $2,400 a month. And who's some of our biggest industries in the city? School and churches. So asking that group to pay $2,400 a month, I don't think anybody thought that was going to be very palatable. So we kind of pulled back a little bit and said, well, what do you think we could pay? We had meetings with the school, and they said, well, we know we're due to pay a fair share. They gave us an idea, basically, and I don't know, Mayor, if you want to talk about that a little bit, what they thought they could handle on a monthly basis. And so that's what gave rise to the second model. We call this amended model, but if you remember, Wildan presented what they did at Hot Springs. And so they've already kind of vetted that with the Hot Springs. Now, are we Hot Springs? We're not quite, but,
Not as big.
We're not as big, but it's still a precedence out there that and they've been able to have this, and they've got a funded stormwater utility that's a result of that. So it made a good model for us to match. So we kind of took this one to say, that's what these dollar figures are. If you look, they didn't really do a projected. So we kind of projected out, as we said, you know, would these big square footage areas be willing to pay $600 a month? And I think the overall feel that we got from like Wildan and them was, yeah, your big box stores and stuff like that, they probably won't bat an eye. They'll probably say some things, obviously, but $600 versus $2,400 is a little bit more palatable, we would think, especially when we have churches and schools. And like I said, our discussion with schools was, this is what we think we could pay per month on it. But basically that changed our bond to about $5 million for the first year, and then there. So yes, we're going to have to really screw down what we think we're going to be able to do as part of cap. Yes, Scott.
How does this, what you were just talking about regarding the school district and asking people what could you afford to pay, how does that relate to the impervious surface methodology? The impervious surface is not a negotiable.
It is not. It's not, unless you change the buildings or you do things like that. So it's kind of back figured, right? So that we know basically what we need to spend. We know that our operating costs and our operating expense doesn't change per model. They're still the same. Whatever we equip our department with, personnel, equipment, all those things, they're in both models. So you still have that. And once again, you know, those guys are also going to be engaged in doing capital improvement projects too. So they're going to be, you know, they're going to be working on some of the things that are not a part of that $10 million to do.
Is the staffing phased in?
Yes, it's phased in, and that's why even this one goes negative too, if you notice, because at some point you're going to hire more people, you're going to buy more equipment. So all this is still the same model, but you're going to phase in how many people you're going to add.
If I recall correctly, at our first meeting, I believe, Tim said that, in terms of staffing, he needed today, ideally, he needed 4 more people dedicated to stormwater. Is that?
That, he did, but he phased those in. He didn't hire
Okay. So it's
4 people immediately. It's still phased, yes, but it's, yes, so we'll say, it could even be further out, but I would say yes, there's gonna be, a couple people, equipment purchased and facilities managed as a result of that. So we stuck to that model that whatever we do here, our utilities broken out, still gonna be the same, staffed as well. So it's whether or not, like I said, it's how we fit this 10 million versus the 95 million or the 20 million that we had in the previous model.
And the projects to be accomplished, are they based upon the recommendations of the study in terms of priority levels?
The priority level we didn't change, but once again, that was still the $21 million.
Right, okay.
So we're gonna have to go back and still sharpen our pencil and figure out which projects we're gonna have to do initially. I mean, it gives us some, immediate ability to do some things. And then once again, still, you're gonna have that functioning utility that's gonna be working on those projects too. So, any more questions about how, do you guys have any questions as far as, love talking about spreadsheets, man. You think Joy loves spreadsheets. I really love spreadsheets. So,
We can tell.
yeah, so,
Only 1 page on your sheet.
yeah, I know, I try to keep it all condensed in one. But, well, there's 2, really.
What's Will Dan recommended 10 million and you said 5.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that number?
So we kind of sat down and looked at some of the immediate projects, like we know like Oak Glen's one that's probably, it's going to be a tough one to get squeezed into this model, but we think we can accomplish some things. And then there was other things that we kind of value engineered, like the stuff on rodeo. There's things that we don't necessarily think maybe at $17 million we could do differently there that could cut those those back. So, once again, as a artist formerly known as an engineer, sometimes the engineering estimate is really high because they want to guarantee that they don't ever want to come over budget. They want to be under. So a lot of those projects were the worst case scenario as far as design. So, we had Hidden Forest. Several of those we think we can do within that $5 million range, and then another $5 million in 3 years. Because for one thing, it's going to take us a while to get those designed, bid it out, and then actually under construction. That will give us more time to accrue revenue to be able to do the next project.
And that's kind of the phase 2 piece for us, is the way we're thinking. If we go from where we are now to getting this stormwater department a standalone, then you can start to plan strategically. And it's not just I'm not throwing shade at the study. It's not just a study. It's us working, grant writing, other things to do what we can in this second phase, right? We're gonna look at these 4 years. We're gonna do these projects for this money, and then we'll reevaluate in 2029 about what it looks like moving forward. The amended model is a game changer for the city of Bryant. I mean, it doesn't get the 95 million done, but it gets us to that next step that we think is the right step for us without trying to take on too much too fast.
Some of the key things that is worth discussion upon the amended model, different from the original Wildan model, is, and it was a question that Dan Jackson brought up, is going to keep deferring our senior payments as far as that. And to keep this model working within that operating expense and still getting $5 million, we're saying the seniors are still going to be part of that payment. And their conversation is yes, seniors aren't on fixed income, but by definition, Bill Gates is also a senior citizen too, right? Does he not have to pay for stormwater issues? I mean, so there's the arguments for both, but for now, to look at this amended model, the seniors are included as part of that fee structure.
All residential pay the same.
All residentials will pay the same.
And we did talk about last month that if you were gonna try to justify a different rate, it would be based rationally. Logically, to me, it would be based on income, not your age.
Yes.
The reason you talked
Right.
about.
Yeah, people with structured pay.
Then you get, trust me, from experience, you get into administrative, oh my gosh.
That's difficult.
It's a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people bringing in proof of income and you don't want to go down that road.
Nope.
It's a lot easier to explain everyone's being treated the same because it's stormwater.
That's right.
And there aren't any, you know, God doesn't make any distinctions between
Mm-hmm.
seniors and others.
So right now, we would, but we're proposing that we would take them to 4.25.
Yes, and I'm glad you hit upon that too, because once again, currently we're at $3. And so if we enact this and go to 2026, all residents will pay $4.25, which is still, by definition, I believe, last check, Benton was 5 and 10, where residents are, so we'd still be underneath what Benton was doing, and I think they're changing their structure too.
Benton has a stormwater.
They have a stormwater utility fee, but it's like 5 and 10. And I think they're in the process of changing that.
We were told last meeting it was just
That's not
Bryant and Hot Springs.
Yeah.
That us and Hot Springs are the only ones that do a tiered impervious area. Benton just does 5 and 10, just like we do now. But they don't have a stormwater utility either.
That's helpful. They've been,
And so looking at that is, you know, the first year would, you know, the citizens would go to $4.25 and then $6 and $6 and then basically plateau out at $8 at some point.
So would there be any merit in kind of like Shane Knight talked to us about last month, one of the things, which is on my list of questions tonight, but it kind of smooth in for the senior citizens, because 4.25 on some bills is a 10%
Certainly.
jump.
And I think what one,
And take them to 3, and instead of where there's 6 and 6, maybe that 6 is a 7 between the 6 and the 8. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Kind of make it a smooth increase.
Now, once again, we tried to model this after Hot Springs, but we only had the snapshot picture of Hot Springs right now. We know that they're implying to go to a larger fee structure. And so if you look at the model that Tim and I put together is we kept, even on impervious areas of commercial, we kept like 2027, 2028 fairly similar, the same, with like a jump in 229. So that's why you'll see like there's a lot of repeat, regardless of whether or not it's residential or commercial or square footage, is we kept 27 and 28 kind of the same. And that's probably why that 27 went negative a little bit. It's because we kept the same fee structure for those 2 years. Because we kind of just felt like it gives another year of transition before we ramp up again.
so the impact on a senior would go from 3 to 4.25.
Well, they're not even paying 3 now.
Right.
So as we'd immediately go to 4.25 by this model.
0 to 4.25.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we're given,
Yeah, why are we giving grace to the others, and I think we should just do that for all of them.
Well, that's what Denisha, I believe that's what it's no matter who you are, is that you're gonna, if you're a resident starting next year, you senior or not, you'd be paying $4.25.
Denise, it'll be one rate.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to scenario 2. You know, that was scenario 1, scenario 2. Scenario 2 was the one that seniors are not completely
Right.
exempt.
But I was saying, if we did like $3.25, $3, and maybe bumped up 2028 to like what Lisa said, $7.
Mm-hmm.
Could we do that for the other areas that were not residential? Because
Yes.
27 and 28, like you said, are consistent. You do a little bit of increase in 29.
If you guys are willing to do that, I'm happy to.
Offsets on the shortfall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before people ask questions, well, y'all didn't go up last year, why I'm going to, you know.
That's a very good point,
Yeah.
extremely good point.
Not on anybody else. The seniors will be angry.
It's extremely good point. And to be honest with you, like I said, yeah, it's easy enough. That's why I pulled up the Excel version versus the PDF. I could go punch some numbers in if y'all want to see what that does. But I don't have necessarily a problem with it as far as we incrementally make it go up.
Does look at what it's saying.
Mm-hmm. And easy enough to figure out. See, like we do go negative, well, I can make that go positive. But once again, you know, as long as we're within that curve of following the operation expense and it balancing out, any more that we bring in is more that we can put towards capital improvement projects.
I I think it's important that the more complicated we make this in explaining it to people, the more likely it's going to increase confusion and/or anxiety and/or resistance. You know, you keep it, we're treating everybody the same. You know, the city hasn't touched this in forever, and now we're trying to take care of these projects, and we're going to have an initial oomph, you know, to get started. And, you know, I'm not excited about any kind of rate increase, but these projects have been deferred so long. And that's, to me, that's why it's important to relate. And each year, make certain that we are identifying the specific capital projects that are going to be accomplished. For example, if we were to adopt some form of this, are we going to be able to actually accomplish a stormwater capital project in Bryant in calendar year 26? So people can see people, equipment, construction,
Yes,
solutions.
yes.
That is really,
Yeah,
you know,
we
again,
will.
People, if they can see, this is how my money is being spent. We're not just, you know, you got a plan, you got to look ahead, but what are we doing with the money? And if they see it getting put to good use, which would be following the, you know, we're trying to deal with the worst problems first.
Well, the answer is yes.
Good.
Without a doubt. Like you're talking in 2026, $5 million instead of 300,000.
So the bonds will be issued early in the year?
That'll be our
Oh, yeah.
goal.
But you're gonna always have people say, well, mine's just as bad as that other one.
Oh, yeah.
I could be not fixing mine first.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, yes, that's always going to be
Oh, yeah.
So in
somebody.
your funding scenario, did you address Shane's request for the businesses?
Yeah,
It would be, what do you say, request for like a 3-month incremental increase?
that depends.
Soften the blow?
Yeah, that depends on how the recommendation to council and how we execute that. And so we looked at, basically, pull up something right here, is, you know, we went and this is what our intention is, to share this with Shane in the chamber. These are all what are identified as essentially commercial locations. Now, there's stuff that's still kind of mixed in that are like people that are multi-housing that's within those areas, you know, that would somewhat like the hurricane apartments. And this would be like the current model, this is what their fee structure would look like as far as paying. And then likewise in 2026 on our amended model. So we intend to share that with them so the chamber can start doing their public outreach and let them know. And then we can stage how that fee hits. Of course, I think one of the immediate discussions was do commercial first, move the residential to next, and then maybe the nonprofits even lag behind that too.
How are you planning on phasing the commercial in? Like, did they have an increase this month and a bigger increase in what was that?
Well, once again, I think these overall fee structures start off small. I mean, they, you know, like you said, is, you know, even the biggest one of them in there is going to be like 300. Well, that's the other model, but you know, the biggest ones are going to be around $300 to $400. They're going to start off with. So, and that's in that particular one, that's Alcoa Exchange. That's Target.
All those stores.
Mm-hmm.
On the
In
back
one
side,
month.
Mm-hmm.
on the back side only.
So Walmart, Lowe's, those kind of places are going to be paying the largest fee structure initially, and even then, it's going to start off around $300.
Did you have a breakdown that Jim asked for the businesses that fell into that list?
I think this is it. And this has their square footages, and this is everything in here. Now, like I said, you know, this isn't in your packet, but there's stuff that's mixed in. There's even people that own fast tracks within a commercial zone that they may be using as residents or things like that. Those kind of details will have to be scrutinized and figured out. And also to let y'all know, not to scare you, but there's also the means on how we implement the fee. So our current one is based off of your water meter. So you at home, you're paying $3, a commercial business has one at $6. That's easy. But if we go to parcel size and say you have a strip mall, you got a water meter, well, how much of the parking lot belongs to you? Well, that's the landowners. So this is all done based off of parcel, but in the end, it still represents the square footage of impervious area that has to be divided among the businesses. And those things have to be figured out. And I'm confident that we can.
That would be the decision of the landlord, right? The owner of the property.
That's one way to do
Pass
it.
that along to the retailers that occupy the.
Well, it's like, you would deal with that in your lease.
So
Your property lease.
it'd be nice if everybody had a master meter for a strip mall in which, you know, one fee's assessed and then the landlord would go through and separate and say, well, you got this much in the parking lot, this much in your parking lot. But we have both. We have where there's water meters going to each business, and those things, like I said, will have to be figured out. I think in the end, there's gonna be a lot of discussion about that, but I think we'll get it sorted out.
And one of the things I like about the phase two model is 2029 rolls around, we get a chance to take a breath and go, all right, what's working, what's not working? Could be, perfect world, hey, it's working. We've capped the fees. At some point, there's always going to be stuff we need to get done in the city of Bryant. At some point, we get ahead of it enough that we're doing things to prevent where we are now, right? And so, you know, that's where I didn't want to make our fee structure off the 95 million. I wanted to take this and say, all right, let's pull back and make it off of a obviously operation funds. We get our stormwater department standalone. We take that 10 million slice. We get stuff done for 4 years, and then the leadership of the city at that time can regroup and say, okay, what does it look like moving forward? I believe we're in a different spot, right? We're not playing catch up as much. There's still a lot to do, but we're not reeling kind of like we feel like we are now. We've got a plan in place. We've got a funding source in place, and we can hopefully little by little make the increases we need if we need them. But we're not in this spot where we feel like we got to make such a big leap.
And am I correct, our legislature passed a law in the 25 session that we'll have to do another rate study in 2030. That's the size of our city, right?
Are you referring, and maybe Mariah, she stepped out, but are you referring to the wastewater portion? She could answer that, but basically I think you're structured as every 5 years anyway.
Yeah. So we'll be doing another study, I would imagine.
For wastewater, but
But even for this, we should.
we should,
I agree.
we should, yeah.
To adopt that model that we have to adopt legally and place it on us on stormwater, it'll get there. Right? I think we'll get there where you'll see every city in the state have a stormwater utility. We're actually at the game.
So I have a question, you bring that up. So of this 5 million you're gonna generate with the first bond,
Mm-hmm.
what percentage of dollars, you keep talking about the stormwater utility, how much of that money is gonna be dedicated to the growth of the department versus the project?
The bonds are strictly projects only capital improvement projects. The operating expense is figured in already as part of the revenue stream.
So you can see that in the spreadsheet. And
So down here at the bottom, if you look,
it should be at that bottom, 2026 should be the first year, not 2025.
oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's in my spreadsheet. I think I fixed it on yours. But essentially, the annual expected operating expense, those are a separate line item from the bonds. The bonds are strictly for the projects.
So the revenue there is for operations and payment on the bonds.
Tell me again, if January 1st of 26, how much of the money is then, how does it benefit the street fund?
That's a question for Tim, but immediately when we start generating the fund, that he can pull those reserves back out of what he spends on stormwater and immediately back to street fund repairing and doing maintenance on streets.
It's in the, it's 600,000-ish.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the
There it is, right there.
He told us that.
Mm-hmm. There it is, $636,684.
that
Kept
goes,
in the street fund.
That's operations.
Right.
That's not projects, that's just, that's,
Well,
Yeah, but
it
we're
could-
supplementing, we're spending 636 out of street
right,
to
right.
supplement stormwater. So if we can fund stormwater within itself, that money then stays in the street.
and they could use it for project, or they could use it for operating expense. I don't
Right.
think there's any restrictions there.
That would be a council mayor decision. That's just based on how you appropriate the money. You've got 600,000 sitting there,
Mm-hmm.
which would be fabulous. That's
Yeah.
600,000 more than now.
I used to be able to quote how much 300,000 could overlay a street from the state turnback funds, but I couldn't tell you how much footage it is now.
You just,
Hey, Mariah, we got a question from Mariah.
Leave the room. We came up with a question for you.
You want to go ahead and ask her?
stormwater, how many years do we have to go back and do the rate study according to Act 605?
If you compared it to wastewater.
Five's not stormwater, is it?
I'm sorry, I meant wastewater, sorry.
5 years.
Every 5.
All right.
We could, look, as a committee, if you want to push it out 5 years and we set a precedent that we're going to do on 5 years, that's fine. This was just a place for us to start. If you want to change those numbers and look at how that affects the bottom line, if you want to do a certain percent increase every year, I agree with Scott that, simple is, whatever is simple. This was just kind of our starting place. If you're not comfortable tonight, it's fine. If you are comfortable, if we come to something you all like, I'd like to recommend it to council to do 3 readings, and in those 3 months, we're gonna hit the road, we're gonna meet with business leaders, we're gonna put word out with residents, we're gonna ask people to show up, your feedback. This is kind of where we're headed. Please speak up.
So this was the original capital improvement plan that we've been looking at, that Garver set out for us. So, I mean, you can look that, $5 million will get us a ways down the line for initially, and then in 3 years, $5 million will get us further down the line too. I mean, realistically, $95 million, I don't think in this generational gap that we're gonna actually improve Boone Road and widen it at $25 million. We're just not gonna do that. So that's $25 million right off the 95 that we're not gonna be able to do. The Rodeo Drive, when I'm starting from the bottom going up, the Rodeo Drive, we're fairly confident that we got solutions that are better than $17 million. And quite a bit better than that. And no fault of Garver. When you ask them, hey, what does it take to fix something? They're gonna give you the design and the cost of what it's gonna take to fix it completely. Cyanamide Road at Hurricane Creek, to be quite honest with you, Cyanamide Bridge doesn't even belong to the city of Bryant. It belongs to the city of Benton. But we do know that's a problem. Cyanamide's considered a minor arterial. It does need improvements. It does flood neighborhoods, and it does cause issues. So I don't foresee that as something that we're going to tackle in the next 4 years. We're just not going to. So there's another $16 million. Shove Road at unnamed tributary to Crooked Creek. I don't know if folks know that the colloquial name of it's Cox Canal.
Right.
Cox Canal requires a new boring underneath Union Pacific's railroad. Do you know what it takes to get that done? It's not going to happen. So immediately, we've already knocked off, something like, I don't know, 60 million right there. No, not 60 million. Yeah, somewhere around there. And Midland Road at Owen Creek, would love to do that one, because on Owen Creek, the outfall, I'm sorry, I'm slipping back into stuff, is we got 3 outfalls. We got Crooked Creek, Hurricane Creek, and Owen Creek. And Owen Creek comes out at Midland Road, and it's the bottleneck that kind of holds everything up. So we'd love to do that project. Of course, Oak Glen, one of our most vocal neighborhoods, love to do that project. So I think we could really do some value here. And then once again, we're going to have a utility that's going to be doing work in these areas, improving them. That's part of their operation expense. So, I mean, I think it's a realistic approach to looking at a good bonding structure.
It's safe to say that the Bryant City staff, if you've got the money, you know exactly where you would spend it.
Mm-hmm. Pretty good.
probably had, even before a study, you probably said.
Yes.
You're the,
So much of this was relaying information to the consultants.
they took it.
And modeled it. They gave us the science behind what we
My
heard.
idea on Boone Road is you negotiate a contract with Rebecca.
Okay.
A performance incentive contract. Okay? And you say, Rebecca, you find me $25 million.
And she gets a commission?
And she retires.
What good does that do us?
You get-
Yeah, no.
You get 10% of the $25 million.
That's incentive, that's incentive.
We wanted to be around a long time. I'm working for less.
Negotiate that.
Well, no, I think you're right. I do think that, as you know, when you have an income stream and you have a budget and you start planning down the future, we can strategically go after grants. And we say, hey,
Yeah.
that 5 million, again, this is the hope that the 5 million becomes more money because we're applying for 50/50 grants, 80/20 grants, so that we can do more with the first 5 million, first 10 million, stretch that out and see how far we can get on those projects that Ted, referred to, that we feel confident we can get a lot done in 4 or 5 years with $10 million and an operating fund.
What is the environment now out there in the state or the country in terms of stormwater management grants, federal or state?
So there's a couple of grant, you want to touch this one or? Oh, well, can I go ahead and jump out there? Because there's a state and a federal level, they're called BRIC grants. And the federal level, BRIC grants, don't ask me what the acronym is, I've long forgotten. But the federal ones, we hardly ever get any of them in the interior continental United States. They usually go to the East Coast or the West Coast. And I guess because so much of them are ocean frontage and those kind of things that have significant issues. But typically, state fund projects, there for a while, they kind of come in like a 2 or 3 year cyclical period. We'll get like 3 or 4, that's 300,000, and then we'll miss a year. Would that be a fair assessment?
We've done quite a bit with the $300,000 a year that we've been getting. We've been back to do $1 billion.
And
The council did set aside $1 million a few years ago for stormwater improvements, and so they stretched that money and have accomplished quite a bit with what we're already doing. So this is obviously exponentially better than where we are.
yeah, between Rebecca, Mariah, and Ben Wilson, I can't say enough about him. They're all in tune with when to go apply for those. And anything from even down to a $70,000 drainage culvert improvement grant, they'll go get those. So this model does not take in any of that additional, which we consider that as immediately going to projects, because those are always project driven. And then one of the things too is that these capital improvements, they're big projects. There's always going to be that, we have a road crossing where we need to upsize a culvert that hopefully we'll be able to do in-house or do with those smaller grants.
This doesn't include any of the grant funds, because you don't know if you're gonna get.
You never know. Yeah.
How much do we get this year?
Anybody want to guess?
Ben Wilson question.
That is a Ben Wilson question.
Where's Ben?
Ben's very shy.
He is. He's very, he hones in on that stuff. And I'll tell you a funny story though, is those grants are really structured about payouts on it. Oh, good Lord, don't ever want to be the project engineer associated with Ben Wilson's project, because he will knock on your door constantly to get the signed invoices out to those projects. I mean, he will drive you nuts on it. He's that on top of stuff.
Example, how much would we have the year before last, in just an ideal?
Well, I know, you remember when we did the Spring Hill Hilltop Road right there? We had a grant that was about $300,000. And if I remember, and I'm gonna just throw some numbers out, and y'all are gonna quote me, and I'm gonna be wrong, because I think that was like a $450,000 project. So we end up having
We've been getting some grants.
We've been getting some.
And the grants are ranging in that 300,000 range.
You get, like I said, you can get something as small as like 70,000 on up to 300 and some odd $1,000. Yeah. So, so we can go back to that. Since we do have some parishioner or nonprofits in here, we'll just call you nonprofits. Is that okay? I imagine you're going to want to know what that's going to look like on your case, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've ran the numbers and we sat and talked through it all last night. One of the questions that I would have with that, I mean, we fall in that 100,000 to 250,000 square footage, just parking lot. I don't know if this numbers are including roofs or.
It is. It's anything that would prevent the water from soaking into the ground.
Churches who have, like retaining ponds or businesses that have those already.
Yeah, so that we had that conversation last week was, okay, so there's two types of water. There's the water that runs off your site, that causes problems downstream. If you put it off real fast, it's real intense. That causes immediate flash flooding. Those are the ones that are managed by your on-site stormwater detention. Then there's the water that soaks into the ground that can't no longer because it's sealed off. And so we identify those as two different pathways of water. So, you know, even if a new site came in, they would still be under the restriction that they'd have to make sure that developed water post-development is no more than pre-development, meaning that whatever you put on site, it can't go off faster than it did before. But you still have to look at what you are not able to absorb, and that's what this is about, is what you can't absorb back into the ground. And so I believe you said you're First Southern Baptist. And so there you are. Now, the reason why you're on here 3 times is because you're spread among 3 parcels. And so, like, for instance, you got evidently a parcel that one of these, and this is only your impervious area. This would be only your rooftop and your parking lot. One of them evidently is 64,226 feet. There's one that's another 6, and then there's what? So if you total these up, it'd be approximately 200,000 square feet of impervious area. And so initially, and I'm just going to do this by letting Dell do its magic. Do have the right ones. So, yep. And so down here, can you see that number?
Go down one.
You need one down.
Yeah,
Oh, did I miss one?
start there and go down through it, yeah.
There should be like a total down here somewhere.
I have to read that to you.
It's $100.49?
Yeah, 249 cents would be your initial first year that you would pay a month.
And then,
A month.
but that's not the amended model.
That is not. This is the old, well, here's the thing. The amended model and the Hot Springs model, you actually paid more. It's like 3 times 90, which would be 270. That would be your monthly. But the difference is as this model progresses, you're going to pay less. You're going to top out. Let's just go down here. You're going to top out by 2029 at that, which is 480. Whereas opposed, you would have been paying.
It just seems like a huge ask for, I mean, nonprofits and churches, we can't recoup that. In Walmart, they can raise every sale 25 cents a lot. But, I don't know, that's just a hard ask, it's not an ask. I mean, y'all gonna do what y'all gonna do.
Well, I mean, we're sensitive to all that, obviously, but I mean, that's why we came up with the amended model. It's like, yeah, asking for over $1,000 a month just seems pretty draconian.
I can't understand why the city would want to tax churches. I don't, that's beyond anything I can understand.
Well,
I understand we got water too and all that, but it's a church, it's not profit. I think it's legally wrong. Now, I don't, you know, the state can't charge a property tax on churches. It is legally not allowed.
This is not a tax, it's a fee.
And fees are taxes. So how can't the city tax a church parking lot? It's ludicrous. I mean, I don't,
But I
I
mean,
think you're gonna run into so much problem with it from so many people. I mean, I don't, I know as I own a shopping center, I understand, I pay a fee, no problem. I own several of them, that's fine. I'm glad to do it. But schools and churches, that's y'all's business.
So schools is also within this model too.
I understand, I heard that. I mean, I have a hard time with it.
So have the schools and the churches been paying the $3 fee or not?
The six, it would be the $6 fee.
I mean, I think that's fine, but it's, the shopping center I own, we have 1 meter, so I pay that meter fee.
Well, I'm gonna present you one other case then, if that's okay, is this model still be the same, so the revenue source would still, so if we take churches, nonprofits completely out, then the commercial are gonna have to pay quite a bit more. And that's definitely a possibility, but that's something else that commercial would.
Split through much easier. You start messing churches in Bryant, Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
First Southern feels the same as we do with New Life Church. I mean, you know, it's not gonna sit well.
The other side of the spectrum is that commercials will have to pay quite a bit more, because to be honest with you, the largest areas of impervious areas in the city, even though we have Walmart, we have Lowe's, we have Target, is schools and very large parking lots at churches.
what's the?
So can we look at another, scenario with the numbers, just so we can make
Yes.
see all of it at a scope? I mean, I get what he's saying as well, but we gotta do something. Everybody's gonna be affected, even the seniors. But at least we can see what that will look like.
That's, the beauty of the spreadsheet is it's a matter of just punching some numbers in.
You've got all kinds of hypotheticals you can put in there.
And this is why we structured this way, so we would have a lot of time for conversation and come to what everybody feels good about moving forward. This is not, this is what's gonna be, and this is, all right, how do we get to our goal of standalone stormwater with conversations with the community that makes sense for everybody?
Good question, B. You talked about hot springs. Do other communities start churches?
Based off impervious areas. Now, I couldn't tell you about the particulars. I didn't do the rate analysis, but there are probably particulars that they do based off impervious areas, even including nonprofits. Because in our conversations, even with Will Dan, you may not, is why aren't you charging more for commercial? Why aren't you charging more for schools? Why aren't you charging more for churches? And it's, you know,
If you take out churches and schools, how much are we gonna be?
so churches and schools, where's my other spreadsheet? Is that schools and churches?
Yeah.
Small.
Yeah.
So this is schools, schools would not be paying $3,700 a month. And
That would be the peak.
and also likewise, churches would be, total churches would not be paying $3,700 a month.
You're talking $8,000.
A month. So
2029 at the peak.
at the 2029's peak, at the amended, at the not amended, they would be paying roughly $10,000 and $12,000 for the church, schools.
So the amended one, we'd have to
We'd have to get that revenue from basically from commercials. Or up the residential and senior fees.
What do you think is palatable? No fee, percentage off because you're to schools and nonprofits?
Or maybe a cap?
It's hard to say. I mean, you know, we're talking revenue streams. Our church, all churches' revenue streams are based on tithes and offerings.
Right, exactly.
So once that dries up, you are still hitting us with the, poor, I mean,
And those ebbs and flow, don't they?
I mean, my entire income is based on generosity of parishioners.
Understand.
And so when the home takes a hit, the church takes a hit. And that's standard. And so that's gonna hurt across the board. I emailed information to about 8 different pastors and Bryant just saying,
Yeah.
hey, get on, you need to know.
Yeah, fine.
And so that's what's really concerning. I don't know. I don't know what's feasible. Especially when you look out here at the 29, $300 a month, that's a huge chunk for a church to ask.
What if it was 50%?
50% of that, I mean, we're gonna try to deal with whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's like, that, when I look at my budget and how we do things, it's like, that's the entire BB year, of taking kids from our community, pouring into them, feeding them, serving them. We're gonna have to get that from somewhere else now, so someone else is gonna have to get it. So when fees like this start to hit the church, it starts to hit the community. First Southern, we do 500 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches a week to the high school football team. That's 7 or 8 years, like 70,000, 80,000 peanut butter sandwiches. And it's just stuff we do to the community, and those things are gonna take, and we're not the only one.
Right.
I can only speak about what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Those things take a hit on and we don't get a single football player to come to our church. There's not a single coach right now, a single football player that comes for our Southern. But those people are faithfully making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, taking to the field house, feeding kids who can't eat, or they're just coming to school hungry. And those types of
What do
things.
you do when the price of peanut butter and bread goes up?
It does, and it has.
Yeah.
We spend about $150 a week. And then if you calculate in the labor hours of making 500 sandwiches. And so, things take hits. I know New Life does Thanksgiving dinners like crazy.
We do all sorts of it.
And they're
Any church is operating on, like you're saying, it's on money donated or contributions, and I know we don't pay any taxes at all right now. Churches don't. We don't pay property tax, we don't pay, we just don't pay taxes. It's a government thing. And are you saying, no, we're gonna start charging churches a separate fee because your parking lot? I mean, once again, I'm just one of the members. I'm not a pastor or anything. I'm just a member. Pastor asked me if I could come and check this out, and I just don't think it ain't gonna go well. I mean, you wait to the first city council meeting, this is that, it's gonna be packed. It's gonna be packed, of course, it'll be packed with seniors concerned. Yeah. But you talk about packed with church people's concerned.
Well, also, it's been packed on numerous times with flooding. And that's been a big issue. It's very hard dealing with people that's been pushed out of their houses.
And that's, I would hope so. Like, I really do. This is, we've talked about this. We're trying to have these conversations as publicly as possible so people will show up and engage and help us come up with a decision, the best decision we can for the community. That only happens when people are engaged about this. I think,
Love spreadsheet.
yeah, I think, we can come with a lot of scenarios, right? There's no end to the scenarios we could.
Like, if you take the $8,000 a year and spread it over the commercial, how much would it make commercial go up?
Yeah,
150 per.
yeah, that's gonna take me a little bit of a juggle, but I could, yeah,
150.
basically.
I calculated it out. If you take that 8,000.
Oh, I'm impressed.
Man,
Oh,
dude, he doesn't even need a spreadsheet.
Big brain there.
150 per. If you did if you took churches and schools out and added $1 to all the residential, it'd almost come out a wash.
Is that residential with seniors included?
Yeah, that 8,000, it's 8113 is the number of
Well,
residential customers.
The first rate would be 5.25 for residential, and then your seniors would be hit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know,
That's if
they
you,
have a $50 water bill, they're fixing to get a 10% increase. You think that $15 fee was bad? This will be just as ugly.
I know.
Yeah, you know, you're talking for a senior, and if you can kind of keep it out of the churches, which, you know, a lot of them are gonna support the churches anyway. You know, it's almost, which do you do? You know, do you charge the church, which is gonna cause them to tide more into a building fund or something to that effect? Or do you pass that along to them directly?
Maybe you go half and half, increase
Could
commercial a
potentially,
little bit, increase households a little bit, take churches and schools out of it.
Yeah, I think in a case though, in particular, I mean, and I'll let the mayor speak, I don't think the school thinks they're free of this. I think they're agreeable to pay a part of this. They understand. They're our largest industry in the city.
They appreciated us, the amended one, the cap, what they can expect. No surprises. That they can prepare for, they can budget for.
So that'd be 4,000 we'd have to replace if the churches were taken out of the calculation.
Yeah.
How much of them was that?
Well, cut it in half, right? For 50 cents. Because you're roughly half, because you're like 3,700 for the schools and 30.
Kind of jealous of John right now, because he can do it all in his head. I wanted to do it in my spreadsheet,
I mean, you should probably check my math. It's all real rough.
Well, I mean, I could, like I said, it'd probably take me about 15 minutes to get the thing to where it's pretty, and that's all I do.
Well, I think we have to look at what's palatable to the city council as well.
Agreed.
Because if you do the churches, not do the churches, a little bit more on the commercial, residential, than you do the churches, you're gonna have more backlash.
Would it be fair to say that churches would be willing to do something, though?
I would think something, but it's hard, it's hard to judge what, because the ebb and flow of churches, there's been times where First Southern was blowing the doors off and running 700,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and then 3 years later, there's 200 people.
Yeah.
So, that's across the board, some churches, like, I have no idea what the attendance is like at a couple churches,
Mm-hmm.
but they have some big parking lot. I don't have the fortune to drive around and see parking lots on Sunday morning,
Yeah.
Take time off.
Yeah, just go.
Take a sabbatical.
There you go. But, I can't say that no, because, we are part of the community,
Mm-hmm.
but, ideally, I'd be like, I wish it would be waived.
And it probably would, again, depend on the size of the church.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hard thing.
Something that's not really steady state, though, is what you're saying.
Yeah, like he's mentioned, you can may have a larger parking area, but, attendance is down, your tithing is down. You're impacted, differently than you would if you had a full house. Maybe you look at a hard cap for churches, right? Where, you've got a minimum or a maximum, if you will, a payment amount. But then you set that at whatever you will over across this threshold, that 10-year window.
You think based it on the water usage, that'd be one way to find out. How many people are, toilets get flushed.
That's a really, really good approach, yeah.
The duration of the.
Yeah.
How the fridge is going.
You think a flat fee, a reasonable flat fee per month would be seen as, it's participation.
I don't want our residents to say, oh, the churches get out of it.
Well, I know, I'm just exploring.
So, I wouldn't be, this 200 fee, 12 months, or actually, it's actually 270. So, I guess it depends on how flat we talk.
Yeah.
Well, depending on how the residents are impacted, the churches are impacted. You said that.
They could be, yeah.
Totally.
Definitely.
We gotta understand too, not everybody goes to church.
Not everybody goes to church,
Sadly.
and not everybody goes to church in Flint County, or Bryant.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
This doesn't affect anybody that goes to Gar Springs and pays.
that's true, that's true.
Well, they take it back, we do on Raymar.
Yeah, Gyra Springs is in here because they're within the city limits, but we're saying that the parishioners aren't Bryant residents.
Would you be willing to help put together a meeting where we could sit down with as many pastors as we could?
Definitely.
Yeah. Have a conversation and come back with a report to this committee? Would y'all be willing to do that?
I know my pastor would.
Okay.
I think it'd be helpful to have a better, for us to have a better understanding of what is reasonable.
Yeah.
Just so that way we can kind of.
But you got people who don't go to church saying, well, why we had to pay that, church not paying.
So right now, churches don't pay the $6.
They do,
Okay.
they do.
So we know that they can pay that.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
They are paying that.
Right, yeah. So then
That's not a hope,
they
it
have
is,
expense.
it's an is.
So we could come up with cap, like if we increase it to, or do a third of it.
I mean, when all that surcharges are something, I mean, we got hit with that too.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, we're using water.
Yeah.
So and I guess that's the issue, is you're dealing with rainwater.
Well, when you flush a commode, you don't flush, if it doesn't work, people get upset.
They do.
Yeah, you better believe.
They also get up,
Hey, we need to-
as a quit flushing.
Meet with churches and nonprofits and come back and report before we do anything else. You
Yeah.
feel that way? Thank you.
Well, I have a question for the city council people here. What do you feel like the city council will tolerate or accept with this plan, with a plan in place?
I think that, personally, I would say that we could work towards a plan here, but ultimately when it goes first, second, and third readings, the feedback from the public is really.
But we need to have it well flushed out in here
That's right.
before we take it.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
right.
for sure.
And there's a lot of moving parts in this.
Very much so.
And I think the public outreach ought to be more than them coming to a council meeting. You know, at the first or second meeting, we talked about as soon as there's a proposal from the committee to the council, and the council sees that as a reasonable approach, then you I don't know what the status is of the ward meetings, the meetings in the wards, but you could do those and go to where the people are and discuss this. It's a nicer atmosphere for the residents. A lot of residents are uncomfortable coming to a formal meeting.
You have a certain percent that shows up for the ward meetings too.
Huh?
Yeah.
You have a certain percent that will show up for the ward meetings.
I think you're more likely to have candid conversation out of that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, advertise it.
Do we have ours at Raymond?
Well, I guess you could. I don't know why you couldn't. Indian Springs church would be the best place for it. That's more than anybody else does. If it rains, what are you gonna put in that rain mark? Everybody in your lawn chair.
We can't get in the little building, the little,
Well, depending how many, that's not just a house, but how many people can you expect?
in Miss Brown's house.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful idea.
So at least we got something to look at, realistic.
And like I said, the beauty of it is, it's easy enough that once we put some scenarios on quickly, we can see how that
You
reflects.
did a good job, Ted.
Will you email the spreadsheet for those of us that, like John?
Oh, it's copyright protected. Yes, ma'am, I can send it
So
out.
we can,
You can play with it on
so
your
we
own.
can enjoy
Yeah.
your fine work,
This is
Yes,
end of
that's
the day stuff. What do you
because,
expect?
because that took some work.
Oh,
I just put them in there one time.
I'd like to point out that Joy's not the only person that can do spreadsheets around here.
Who
does them, Ted?
Or Crystal, or.
We are working, like I said, with the chamber to start,
Right.
now that we have hard numbers,
Yes.
to meet with them and say, okay, you can look up your business on this list and see how it might affect you. These numbers may, well, just a little bit, but at least we can get the conversation started.
And
Well,
we
you're
can
gonna
try
have it on
family
there.
to see, let's
That
just
we
check.
are gonna be doing.
And I don't wanna point it out, I didn't see us on there, which is fine.
Our vest?
We're not waiting to start that.
I may have missed it, but.
Conversation.
Yeah,
Those are dependent on when my community.
it's all based off of the parcels. What's your
I'm
parcel
sorry.
name?
It'll be dependent
I
on
can
when
tell
my
you.
community engagement committee.
I mean, I'm probably JBL.
Get them mobilized.
That's you?
I meet with
I
them,
haven't started it yet, planning the board meetings.
We'll get them mobilized.
we meet the 16th of the month,
You can pull up GIS.
Yes.
and I'll,
We do not have to be in a hurry. All right, we don't have to
Steamroll.
think, no, we wanna make sure, as much as it depends, no one is surprised about this conversation. And
You will still have everybody surprised. Let people know, you know.
can get
Well, but
engaged
at least
and
we
talk.
will.
What's first, you or him?
No, because they can, it's probably easier. I'll start,
We get that,
Yes,
not
sir.
churches, nonprofits.
Churches, right, John? Where are you? Is that you? No.
No, I'm to the left, right there.
That one or that one?
Yeah, I'll-
Can I come?
Of course.
Yeah.
You commit, and you guys, we'll include you on when that meeting is, and anybody can come and
About which
listen to the conversation.
is, hold on.
Oh, it's kind of got to do.
Communicated today anyway, didn't it? I wonder if
Only see the one.
Anything going around anyway, but.
That sounds right.
That's, I only have
Any
the
other
one.
comments? Anybody have any comments, questions?
So, yeah, I'm amended $48.
$50 a month, that's John.
What would have been $144?
You can jack the price of the drugs.
That's right.
You'll make that off of me a month. Jim's gonna come in and be like, why is my medicine so expensive? Like, man, that stormwater fee hit.
John Martin agreed to pay all the churches' fees?
That's what he did. He definitely did not agree to that. Lisa.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, Scott and Butch, motion and second, sorry.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
We were getting a
To
little.
begin or?
Rowdy.
Yeah.
From the seas. Who knows? I don't know who we bought.
And then you gotta watch out. It's what's filed at the county. Central Bank and Trust. So that may not be what it is.
DBA Armis and.
Yeah, that's it, that's us. What?
No, you're the $48 too.
Oh, 50 I can handle.